Salvos is a powerful yet weak-looking demon. At that time, the system suddenly shows her characteristics, and as she checks it, she suddenly realizes that she is in a deserted place. Salvos begins to walk around the place, and she suddenly feels a sharp pain on her body as she hit herself against a spiky rock. Then Salvos begins to check what kind of rock it is, but she tells herself that it is not an ordinary rock. Salvos decides to leave the rocks, and the system suddenly gives her a notification that she has leveled up, and when she checks her skills, the system shows her that she already has a skill of identification. Salvos immediately uses the skill on the spiky rock to know what it really is, and when she checks, she realizes that it is just a rock. Salvos does not believe that the rocks are ordinary rocks, and while she stands in disbelief, the system shows her another notification about her newly discovered skills, and as Salvos continues to check the system for more information, she suddenly sees some creatures that look like her. Salvos could identify the levels of the creatures, and she discovers that some of the creatures are in the same level as her, while some are below her level. One of the creatures moves closer to Salvos, and she shows off her powers. Then Salvos becomes surprised. As she begins to wonder the kind of power the creature used, suddenly, she decides to try it too, but she realizes that she is not able to do it. Soon, the creatures begins to leave, and Salvos tells herself that she has to follow the creature so as to be able to use the magical power. But as she follows them, the creature stops abruptly, and when Salvos checks, she sees another creature who looks like her too. Then the creature moves towards Salvos and uses its skill to create a magical fire, and as Salvos watches, she wishes that she could do the same. The huge creature begins to look at all the other small creatures, including Salvos, and suddenly, the huge creature, who is a level 6 infant demon, begins to emit fire, and the other creatures tell Salvos that they should fight back, but Salvos tells them that they cannot win as the creature's level is higher than their own. Suddenly, Salvos gets an idea, and her wisdom level begins to increase as she finds a way they can defeat the huge creature. Salvos emits fire using all her energy and wisdom. Then she falls down, and she realizes that she has defeated the huge creature. But the system shows Salvos how she has leveled up to level 6 and also gained 2 new skills. One of the other small creatures comes to meet Salvos, and she asks the creature what it wants from her, but the creature only stares at her. Salvos continues to stare at the creature. Then she asks the creature if it is a rock, but the creature just stares at her. Salvos continues her journey, and she recounts how the skills have helped her, as she only wants to level up and be stronger than she is faced with many obstacles like some infant demons running wild. Salvos is able to protect herself using her powers to defeat her opponents, but she suddenly discovers that she is being followed by the creature that was staring at her, and after many attempts to lose the creature, he did not stop following her. Salvos becomes angry as the creature is shaking her and gets less experience, which makes it difficult for her to level up. Then, she begins to think of what to do in order to make the creature stop following her. Salvos thinks of killing the creature, but she immediately tells herself that if she does that, she would become another wild demon like the one she had defeated. Salvos suddenly sees a group of infant demons like herself and the creature following her, and she begins to see who they are. Then she checks their levels and discovers that the leader of the group is the only one in a higher level than her, as she is a level 8 infant demon and the leader of the group is a level 9 infant demon. As the group moves closer to Salvos and the other demon, the leader of the group immediately points at Salvos, and she begins to think of what to do as she does not know if the group are just a bunch of wild demons. Then she immediately pushes the demon that has been following her to the group, so that she would know if they are wild or not. As Salvos pushes the demon to the leader of the group, the leader continues to point at Salvos, and she begins to move closer to the demon, and she tells the demon that she does but understand what it is trying to tell her. Salvos suddenly feels a huge sharp pain in her body, and she realizes that the leader of the group had hit her, and the demon following her begins to fight with the rest of the group. Then Salvos understands that the group of demons are not wild, and they only want to level up, and they have seen her as a tool for them to level up, as the leader of the group wants the experience of killing her for itself. As the leader of the group moves towards an injured Salvos, she immediately moves away so as not to be killed by the leader of the group. Then she tells herself that she has to fight back. Then, she immediately uses her magical fire, conjuring skills to light a fire, so as to use it against the leader of the group. But when the other members of the group tries to help their leader, the leader pushes them aside as it only wants Salvos for itself. Salvos begins to fight with the leader of the group, while the demon following Salvos begins to defeat the members of the group one after the other. The demon then joins Salvos, and she yells at the leader of the group, as they are already 2 against the leader. Then they both use their skills and abilities to defeat the level 9 leader. As the 2 fall to the ground, the system brings up a notification, and Salvos notices that she has learned a new general skill and also leveled up to level 9. Then she tells herself that she would soon reach level 10, and when she reaches the level, she knows that something is going to happen to her, but she doesn't know exactly what the thing is. Salvos and the demon continues their journey after resting for a while, and Salvos notices that she now has limbs that she does not have when she was a level 1 infant demon. Salvos also commends the fact that she has a new hamper by her side as she has fully embraced the help of the infant demon that has been following her. She thanks him as he had saved her life, and from there they both begins to fight and level up together. But while on their journey, they suddenly hear a loud noise, and when they check, they both see some huge monsters and other infant demons like themselves. Salvos tells herself that it is the first time she would ever hear a voice as the huge demons yell at the infant demons to walk fast or they would be killed. They both watch and they notice that the infant demons are being forever to follow the huge wild demons who speak a different language, and even when they check the infant demons following the huge demons, they recognize some of the demons from the group they fought earlier that day. The huge demons then uses their skills on the infant demons, and most of the infant demons die due to the attack, but when one of the huge demons look up, Salvos and her companion moves back so that they would not be found out by the huge demons. When the demons leave with the infant demons, Salvos and her companion walks to the scene and they find a weapon which is used by one of the demons, and Salvos is able to identify it because her experience increased while checking the place. Then she tells herself that she should be able to use the weapon with her magical fire. Suddenly the two are faced by a hellhound who is a level 15 creature. Then they begin to think of what to do. The hellhound begins to run towards Salvos and her companion, then she immediately uses her magical fire to hit the hellhound. But she realizes that the creature is fast, and she thinks of another idea. Salvos and her companion begins to attack the hellhound, and they soon realizes that the hellhound's skills is powerful, as it is strong, but Salvos and her companion decides to attack the hellhound from the two sides, and soon the hellhound begins to beat Salvos' companion. Then she decides to help and save her companion by using the spear they saw earlier. Salvos takes the spear and adds her magical fire conjuring skill with it. Then she immediately uses it to stab the hellhound in its throat as it tries to attack her. After defeating the hellhound demon, Salvos falls to the ground, and she sees a notification from the system that she has leveled up, but she begins to feel unconscious, and she sees her companion staring at her before she completely loses her consciousness as she feels like she is evolving. As Salvos becomes unconscious, the system shows her a series of evolutionary bodies she can become, but when she checks everything, she tells herself that it does not define her, that she tells herself that she has to pick one which defines her true self, and as she chooses a body to evolve in, she suddenly goes deeper into her unconscious state. Salvos wakes up and sees that she has evolved into a zealous imp. Then she opens her eyes to see her companion and the demon she had killed. After Salvos evolves, her companion does not recognize her, and she immediately goes close to her companion to make him feel at ease, and suddenly they see another level 13 hellhound demon coming towards them. Salvos immediately tells her companion that she would handle the hellhound. Then she begins to use her powers to attack the hellhound, but she suddenly sees that it is not only one hellhound who has different levels. Then she immediately takes her companion and begins to run away from the hellhounds. Salvos suddenly sees a huge monster in front of her, as the monster is an hell beast and a level 22 beast, and she begins to wonder if the beast is with the other demons, and she immediately uses her fire blast to attack the beast, but she sees that it has no effect on the beast. Salvos carries her companion, and while the beast is busy defeating the hellhounds, she tries to escape with her companion, and when they move forward a little bit, her companion evolves into level 10 fiend and her evolves into a level 12 lesser demon. Salvos continues to check herself, but she is shocked when she suddenly sees her companion, who is a well-built fiend. Salvos begins to look at the fiend, and she becomes surprised when she realizes that it is her companion. She becomes more shocked, and the fiend begins to laugh, and Salvos immediately yells at him as she asks him why he is laughing. The fiend answers her that he is laughing at her because of the way she reacted to his evolution, and she tells him that it was also how he reacted to her own too. The fiend immediately tells Salvos that his name is Hake, and Salvos begins to tell him that she does not know that he had a name like her, as she had always called him her companion. Hake then tells Salvos that he is her leader, and that is why he has been following her, because she saved his life, and he had always wanted to return the favor. But as Salvos looked at Hake, he continues to tell her that as his leader, he likes it the way they have been going to fight and level up together. Salvos asks Hake if that is the same reason why he followed his former group, but he tells her that he was born with them, but they are all gone, which makes him sad as they are the only two left. Salvos becomes confused, and she tells herself that she does not fully understand Hake, and she becomes sad too, but she does not understand why Hake is sad. She immediately tells him that he should not be sad, as they would always be together, and they would continue to fight demons and level up. Suddenly, they both see a giant spider, and they begin to beat the demon, and while they are fighting the demon, Salvos tells herself that as the leader, she would make sure she protects Hake. Then, when they finish defeating the giant demon spider, they both level up as Salvos gets to level 15 and Hake levels up to level 13. Salvos tells Hake that it is unfair as she is only getting huger by a number, and he is fast in leveling up. Then the system suddenly gives them a notification as it tells them that they are entering the Demon King's domain. As they enter the new domain, Hake begins to complain that he is tired of the place, but Salvos tells him to be calm as they have not checked the place out entirely. Hake then tells Salvos that he does not like the feeling he is getting about the place as they have not found any demons ever since they got there, and he also thinks that it must be the place the demons they saw Welder were going to and they could see them and make them join the demon slaves they have. Salvos thinks about it, and she tells him that they should leave as what Hake had said is true. Then they turn back and begins to leave, but they suddenly see a figure from afar, and when they check closely, they realizes that it is a huge monster coming towards them. The monster tells them that he is glad he came as he would be able to defeat 2 lesser demons, and Hake immediately tells Salvos that he cannot see the level of the monster, but Salvos tells him that she can see the level as the monster is a level 42 Jinn. The Jinn tells them that he is higher than their level, and they would not want to try to defeat him. Then Salvos tells Hake that they cannot beat the Jinn, and she tells the Jinn to let them go as they cannot fight with him, and he cannot also do anything with them. The Jinn immediately tells them that they should follow him as he is their king, but Salvos asks him what he intends to do to them if they follow him, and the Jinn tells them that he is not asking them. Suddenly, the Jinn uses his big baton to hit the ground in between Salvos and Hake, as he tells them that he would drag their dead bodies to his lair so as to end his contract with the king. Salvos begins to attack the Jinn with her magical fire skill, but it does but have any effect on him. Then he uses his own skill to hit her, but she dodges the attack. Salvos continues to fight with the Shin, but Hake immediately punches the Jinn, but the Jinn immediately uses his force to punch Hake back, and the Jinn tells Salvos that he would take Hake and kill her as it would be better for him. Salvos uses her spear, and the Jinn asks where she got it from, but they continue to fight, and the Jinn continues to attack Salvos, and when she dodges all his attacks, Hake saves her from a huge attack from the Jinn while he tells Salvos to run for her life, and the Jinn captures him and takes him away. Salvos goes out of the king's domain area, and she becomes sad as she had left Hake alone as he has been taken to King Ragnarok's after he had put his life in danger to save her. She begins to recount how she likes having Hake with her as her companion, but she begins to feel lonely as she tells herself that she does not want to be like other wolf demons who go around to look for how to level up. Salvos begins to trail a drop of blood from Hake, and when the sting stops at an entrance and the system tells her that she is at the entrance of Lucerna's lamp lair, but she gets determined that she would make sure she rescues Hake. As she enters the lair, she sees the Jinn and Hake in a cage. Then she listens as the Jinn talks to Hake as he gives him some set of instructions so that he would know how to react when he meets the king, but unknown to the Jinn. Salvos silently goes to unlock the cage and releases Hake. Then she tells him to run away while she faces the Jinn. Salvos continues fight with the Jinn, and they suddenly fall into a portal that the Jinn had opened, and they both get out of the netherworld and they enter the mortal realm, and the humans become shocked as they see 2 demons. Salvos immediately sees the humans, and she knows that their level is greater than her, as they are all cultists. But as the leader of the cultists, named Chris, begins to tell the Jinn why he needs his help, Salvos begins to think of a way she can escape. The Jinn suddenly yells at the cultists, and he tells them that they broke his ring. But as the Jinn attacks the cultists, Salvos sees it as an opportunity to escape, but while she is running, Chris tells the rest of the men that they should not allow her to leave the place, but she immediately defeats the men that wanted to stop her, and she enters the bushes. As Salvos continues to run, she suddenly hits her foot against a stone, and she falls, but she is able to lose the men that were chasing her. Then the system tells her that she has gained more stats, but she suddenly becomes unconscious. Salvos wakes up the next morning, and she realizes that she is in the mortal realm. But as she sits and begins to think of what to do, she suddenly sees a creature that looks like a hellhound. But when she looks closely, she realizes that it is not a hellhound, but a creature she does not know. She sees that the creature is a dark wolf, who is at the same level as she is, but she attacks the dark wolf, and she defeats it easily as she tells herself that the dark wolf is nothing like the hellhound. Salvos begins to look around in the mortal realm, and she tells herself that the mortal realm looks weird compared to the nether worlds. She also gets determined to go back to her world to meet Hake, but she suddenly sees some bunch of dark wolves rushing towards her, and she immediately defeats them. As Salvos walks to go and rest, she suddenly sees a normal white wolf who looks scared, and when she tries to check, she sees another pack of dark wolves with their master, who is a level 30 dark wolf. As the wolves attack her, she immediately begins to fight all of the dark wolves, but when she defeats all of them, she fights with the master dark wolf, but becomes weak, and she tells herself that she would not be able to defeat the dark wolf, but the white wolf immediately helps her to defeat the master dark wolf. Salvos asks the wolf if it knows the way to the netherworld, but the wolf nods its head that it does not know the way. But when Salvos asks the wolf if it can take her to someone who knows the netherworld, and the wolf in Edmonds states that it would take her to the person. Meanwhile, two men ride their carriage along the bush path, and they begin to discuss their king and adventurers, but suddenly, they see Salvos, who immediately asks them if they know the way to the netherworld. As Salvos tries to talk to the men, they immediately become scared, and they run away from her. But she doesn't know why they had run away, as she only wanted to ask them if they knew the way to the netherworld. Later, Salvos meets some humans, and when she tries to introduce herself to them, they all become scared and run away from her. As Salvos continues to walk to find her way, she suddenly sees a huge place, and she tells herself that she may find her answers in the place. Meanwhile, a villager had gone to the guards to tell him about the demon imp he had seen, but while he was talking, Salvos showed up at a distance, and the head guard told the remaining guards to attack Salvos. As the guards shoot arrows at Salvos, she begins to dodge their attacks, and in no time, they'd all gather around her and start attacking her. But as she wonders why they are so much, a mage tries his powers, as they have announced a reward to be given to whoever defeats and captures Salvos. Later, Salvos sees that she does not stand a chance to the humans as they are getting much. She immediately runs away into the bushes, and she tells herself that they are all trying to kill her. Then she becomes determined to go back to the netherworld, as she tells herself that she would become stronger and make the humans tell her the way to the netherworld. Salvos begins to hunt down demons, and she continues to level up, as she tells herself that she has to be stronger so that she can go back to be there for her companion, Hake. But while she has defeated a bunch of rock monsters, she suddenly meets a man, but she is surprised as she is not able to see his level, and while she wonders if his level is too high for her identification skill to perceive, the man immediately attacks her, and she dodges his attacks and tells him that she is just trying to go back to her world. The man does not listen to her, but he continues to try to attack Salvos, and she defeats him by knocking him out after telling him that she does not know all what he is accusing her of. And when he wakes up, he sees his ring with Salvos, and she tells him that the ring is for her, as she is not able to gain any experience points after defeating him. Salvos asks the man if he knows where the netherworld is, but he tells her that he does not know where it is, as he has never been there before. Then Salvos tells him that he can go, as she believes him, but she tells him that she would kill him if he tries to attack her again. As Salvos turns to leave, the man asks her if she is not the one that ruined Fairdale, and she tells him that she did not ruin anywhere. Then the man tells her that he can help her to return to the netherworlds, and he tells her that he is not sure, and she thinks that he has deceived him, and he tells her that he did not deceive her, but he only wants to help her. She tells him that she wants to return back to her companion so that they can return and study the mortal realm together, and he asks her if she is not going to kill anyone. She agrees to follow him easily, and he becomes surprised that she agrees to follow him, seeing that he has tried to kill her. He tells her that they are going to Hazelbury, and it is a few minutes from their location. She agrees, and she begins to follow him. Daniel introduces himself to her, and he gives her his cloak of shadows so that no one will see her face, and she begins to wonder why, and he tells her that they will try to kill her as demons are not welcome there. He also hands her an item to disguise her identity so that they will not know who she is, and it displays her as a rogue. They begin to talk about humans, and she asks him if demons are bad, and he tells her that they are very bad, and he will destroy the monster that destroyed Fairdale. He notices that the residents are starting to wonder what is wrong with him, and he immediately tells her to talk in private with him, and they begin to head into the city. They arrive at the city, and Salvos sees that they will have to pay a small fee to get into the city, and she asks him what it was about, and he begins to explain it all to her. Daniel sees that he has a lot of explaining to do, and he takes her into an inn. Daniel begins to explain all about adventuring to her, and he asks her if she has any questions, and she tells him that she has tons of questions, but Daniel tells her that he has a headache and he wants to take a nap. They go in, and Salvos begins to wonder what he is doing, and she asks him about his promise, but he tells her that they will continue as soon as he wakes up. Salvos begins to stare at the clock and breaks it on Daniel's head to wake him up so that they can continue on their journey. Salvos sees that the inn was so boring, and she sees that Daniel made her wear some clips, and she does not know the reason why he asked her to put them on. Salvos then sees that she also leveled up last night, which was the first time it will be happening to her, and Daniel calls her and asks her what happened in the night. She tells him that the clock was telling her what time is, but did not tell her what is time. He tells her that is nothing serious, and he warns her to be close to him as they are approaching the Adventurers Guild. Salvos then sees that he is at level 15 and he is very strong, but he tells her that he is higher than that, but the necklace can help him to disguise both his class and his level. Salvos then sees that it does not explain anything. They go into the room, and Salvos tries to mention the name of the netherworld, and Daniel holds her mouth and prevents her from alerting everyone. Daniel then tries to ask the counter about where he wants to go, and he sees Blake, who he has been avoiding, and he asks him what he wants. Blake tells him that he just wants to know how he is doing, and Daniel tells him that he does not have time for what he is doing, and Blake sees that Salvos is a level 23 rogue, and he begins to mock her, and Daniel thinks that he has discovered her identity, and he becomes happy. Blake then tries to convince her to join his company, and she refuses, but he tries to remove her cloak, but she gives him a very big blow in between his legs, and she drags Daniel out of the room, and Daniel begins to talk to her for a while about the incident in the inn, and Daniel tells her to follow him to the library. Salvos sees that the library has a lot of books, but she sees that they did not have the information they needed on getting back to the netherworld, and Daniel begins to beg her, and he tells her that they have only one option, which is to go see that priest. Daniel takes her to the temple, and he asks a priest if he is the head, and he just needs to know about their summoning rituals. The priest then takes them to the summoning pool, and he begins to explain the process to them and how important water it is. The priest then sees that Daniel is interested in their practice, and he asks Daniel why he is so interested in it. Daniel begins to think of a reply to give him, and he sees that there is a fox, and he tells Salvos to be careful, but the priest tells him that its name is Sakura, and it is the guardian of the spirit temple. Daniel begins to ask some questions about it, and the priest begins to answer him, and he then asks Daniel why he seeks the knowledge about the netherworld, and Daniel asks Salvos what he should say. Daniel comes up with an excuse, and Sakura begins to see that something is fishy, and she begins to speak in parables, and she runs off. They begin to wonder what she is talking about, and the priest apologizes and tells them that she does it sometimes. The priest then tells them that it is only the demon that can decide if they want to go back on their own, and they ask some few questions, then they take their leave. Salvos begins to think about what Sakura said, and it finally comes to her. She sees that the demon's name is Lucrena, and he is the one attacking their village. Daniel becomes angry at Salvos because she did not tell him sooner about the demon, and he calls her a liar, and Salvos hits him in between his legs, and she tells him that she is not a liar. They then talk about a strategy, and Daniel tells them that they need to inform the adventurers groups and tell them about the incident, and after they get there, they see that the demon has attacked a village very close to them. Daniel and Salvos begin their journey, and Daniel begins to wonder why they have to go there, and Salvos tells him that it is because he is there and they have to go and stop him. She tells him that he is the reason she is in the human world, and she must not let him die. She then asks for the directions to Maplewell, and Daniel sees that the road has been set ablaze, and he tells her that he cannot see Lucrena there, but she tells him that it must be his doing. Daniel begins to check the village for survivors, but Salvos tells him that there is no one and they have to leave. Salvos then tells him that she has seen someone, and Daniel sees that she is still alive, and he tries to use some of his healing potion on her, and he tells Salvor to stay with her while he sees if there are so many survivors. Salvos introduces herself to her, and Daniel begins to question her about the demon. Daniel then decides to stay the night, and she begins to tell them the story of how they got to the village and what led to the incident. She begins to cry, and Salvos begins to wonder why she is crying, and she yells at Salvos and tells her that the demon is still on the loose and she has to stop the demon. They talk about it for a while, and Daniel advises her to sleep as he sees that she is furious, and they will talk about it the following day. She then tells Daniel that monsters will come to the village, and Salvos tells them that she will watch, and she reveals that she is a demon, and Edith freaks out on seeing her. Salvos sees that she was attacked by Edith after she reveals to her that she was a demon, and she dodged, but Daniel stopped her from killing Edith. Daniel then calms her down, and she later falls asleep, and Salvos begins to keep watch over them, and she spends the night practicing her fire cultivation. The following morning, Salvos tells them that she told them that she can keep watch, and she suddenly dodges a bird, and she sees that it goes to eat up one of the corpses. Salvos sees it as being weird after Daniel tells her that all humans have to eat, and she sees a bird, and she tries to talk to it, but it flies away, and Daniel tells her that some animals are better left alone. Daniel then tries to explain to Salvos why she was almost attacked by Edith, and he tells her that it is because she is a demon, and he begins to apologize to her for that. They begin to talk about Edith's powers, and she sees that she has the ability to summon spirits, and Daniel begins to lecture her on all she needs to know about it. Edith becomes angry, and she begins to refer to Salvos as a thing, and Salvos becomes angry and debunks all her accusations from Edith, and she tells her that she will not eat a hum, seeing it is what Edith has been clamoring about. They begin to argue and almost have a fight, and they suddenly see an arrow pass close to them, and they begin to wonder what it is. The archers sees that they had a good shot, and Edith falls to the ground, and she sees that she requires healing, and the boss begins to talk about how they will take Daniel and Salvos out, seeing that they have taken down the mage, and Joe sees that Salvos is gone, and they see that she uses a fire attack to take them out. They try to take her down, but she takes down their boss, and she tells the warriors that they are next. Daniel and Edith join the fight to take out the assassins, and Salvos sees that Edith is in danger, and she quickly goes to help her. Edith thanks her for saving her life, and she blows her in between her legs, and she falls to the ground and asks Salvos why she did that. Salvos tells her that she is not like other demons, and she should be treated as Salvos, not as a demon. Salvos tells Daniel to take her back to the netherworld so everything will be over. Salvos asks Daniel and Edith what is taking them so long to search the bandits' luggages, but Daniel tells her that they have to search every body to check if they would see valuable artifacts in them. Daniel sees a platinum coin, and he commends the bandits for being rich. Then Edith begins to talk about how she does not like the way some demon behaves, and when she apologizes to Salvos about talking about demons like the way she did, but Salvos tells her that she does not care what she thinks about other demons as long as she knows that she is not like all other demons. While checking, Salvos asks Daniel is there any weapon she could keep, as they are only taking things for themselves, but Daniel hands her some arrows for her to keep them. Edith tells them that they should head back to Hazelberry. As they enter the town back, Salvos tells them that they should go to the temple to get them new spirits, but Edith tells her that they have to keep the loot they have with them, and she also suggests that they keep it in her inn, and as Salvos tells them that they can go to the temple when they are done, Edith tells her that they would go to the Adventurers Guild instead so that they would be able to report the bandits. Daniel and Edith begins to explain to Salvos the things they have to do as adventurers. Then after they drop the loots behind, Salvos tries to ask Edith what she is keeping in her extra bag, and she eventually tells them that it is the badges that serve as an achievement award for the dead members of her team. Salvos immediately consoles Edith and tells her not to worry, as they would have their revenge on Lucerna. After returning the badges to the Adventurers Guild, they all return to the inn, and Salvos notices that the people are staring at Edith, and when she asks, Edith replies that it is because she is a gold-ranked adventurer. Salvos asks what it is, and Edith immediately explains to Salvos how it is rare to see a gold-ranked adventurer of her age. Salvos then becomes surprised as she learns the difference between the netherworld and the mortal realm. Soon they all go to a summoning pool in the temple, and while the men begins to summon some spirits, Daniel tells Salvos to be careful, but Edith tells them that the pool is only designed to summon spirits, and not humans or monsters of any kind. But few minutes later, the men summon some spirits, and a little spirit begins to tell Edith of their terms and conditions, and she also tells Edith to pick the spirits she wants, and as she picks 2 spirits, she gives them a contract to sign. Edith asks the ice spirit and the wooden spirit what their names are, and the ice spirit tells her that the name of the wooden spirit is Druma, while her own name is Miss Chard. After forging the contracts with the spirits, Salvos asks Edith why she did not allow the spirits to follow her around, and she tells her that Image would have to spend her mana to keep the spirits with her. Daniel also asks Edith why she did not choose the highest level spirit, as it would help them to defest Lucerna faster, but she tells him that the highest level spirit would not level up quickly, and Salvos immediately asks her if she knows how to level quickly, and Edith replies her that she does, as they are going to a dungeon in order to be able to level up faster. On getting back to the inn, they explain to Salvos how they do go to dungeons to kill monsters so as to level, and when she asks them why, they tell her that it is because monsters have their lairs in the dungeon. They also explain to Salvos that they have to find the dungeon as they do not know the location of the dungeons. Then Salvos tells them that they should ask the Iron Champions Company, but Daniel tells her that they would not tell them willingly. But she tells him that Blake had offered to show her their dungeons, and what they need to do is to ask. As they go to ask the Iron Champion Company, they tell them that they cannot show them their dungeons, but Daniel tells Salvos that they should go as they do not necessarily have to cause any trouble. Outside the inn, they begin to think of what they can do, and immediately, Edith tells them that they would have to look for the dungeons by themselves, but Daniel tells her that it is not possible as it would be hard for them. Then Salvos tells them that they can steal the map of the Iron Champion Company and Edith, and Daniel tells her that it is bad. Salvos then insists that they steal the map, and Daniel tells her that they would allow her if she promises that she would not kill anyone. Later that night, Salvos goes to the Iron Champion Company to steal the map, and she remembers that Daniel and Edith had told her not to kill or alert anyone, but when she enters a room and she begins to look for the map, she wakes up a sleeping man to ask him, and when he tells her where the map is as a result of being scared, Salvos goes to take the map and immediately goes away as she sees that some men are chasing her. On getting to where Daniel and Edith are, Salvos gives them the map, and she tells them that she was not caught when they ask her, but Edith immediately yells at her as she asks her why they are chasing her, but as has Salvos explain what she did to Edith. Edith becomes angry and asks Daniel how he was able to deal with her. While running for their lives, they all begin to yell at each other, and Edith and Daniel talk about who should be blamed for what had happened. Edith immediately summons Mischard and tells her to freeze the road without hurting the men chasing them, and as Mischard freezes the road, they are not able to see the men again. Soon, they all get to a huge tree, and while Daniel and Edith try to sleep for a night, and throughout the night, Salvos stays awake in the morning. She wakes Daniel and Edith up so that they would continue their journey to the dungeon. Few hours later, they get to a place, and Salvos immediately points out a place to Edith as she asks her if that is the dungeon they are looking for, and Edith commends her for finding their destination. As they move closer, Salvos becomes excited, and she tells them that they should climb down to the dungeon, but Edith tells her that they have to look for a rope. Daniel immediately brings out a rope, and they tie it to a huge rock, but Salvos becomes impatient, and she asks if they can enter the dungeon, but Edith tells her that she still has to summon her spirits. Without using the quick summon skill, then she agrees to allow Salvos enter the dungeon by herself. As Salvos enters the dungeon, Daniel immediately tells her that she should be careful, and he also gives her a lot of instructions so as not to get killed, but when Salvos enters the dungeon, she tells herself that she would kill any monster that tries to attack her first. While in the dungeon, Salvos begins to tell herself that the dungeon does not look special, but when she sees a web, she begins to ask herself the kind of spider that made the web. Then she suddenly sees a huge level 41 drop spider. After defeating the spider, Daniel immediately yells at Salvos as he enters the dungeon. Then he asks her why she had broken her promise, but she tells him that she had lied when she promised him. Edith finishes, and she scolds Salvos for lying, and she also asks Salvos about the level of the monster she had just defeated. Then, they all enter the dungeon, but they suddenly see some crimson bat monsters, and Edith tells Salvos to kill them, but when she kills them all, she tells Edith that she did not level up, and Edith tells her to be patient as she would level up later. Soon they come across a huge spider web, and Edith tells them that they should go back as the spider in the cave would defeat them. Salvos becomes confused on what a lair is, and Edith tries to explain to her, but Daniel disagrees and tells her that it is not how it works, and Salvos begins to wonder what they are arguing with themselves. Salvos become happy as they continue to explore the dungeon, and she becomes happy that she is allowed to continue exploring the cave, and she sees that Edith has ordered the spirits to take the lead, but she walks beside them because she is happy to continue leveling up in the dungeon. They begin to battle a cave spider, and Salvos tells them that she will not allow them to keep the experience for themselves, and she goes after the monster spider. They defeat the spider, and Edith sees that she has leveled, and Edith also sees that Salvos knew that the monster was coming but still decides to keep quiet and watch them as they come, but Salvos explains to her about everything, and they clear the issue they are having. Daniel then sees that they have company and they are attacked by a pack of howers, and Salvos tells them to keep quiet, and she uses her weapon to take out the wolves, and she sees that it is very effective. Edith then allows Daniel to kill the last howers, since she notices that it is calling for help also because she wanted him to upgrade. They then continue deep into the cave, and they encounter a lot of monsters, and Salvos become happy that they have leveled up. Daniel then notices that the monsters they have been fighting are so weak, and Edith tells him to be grateful, and Salvos comes in and asks them where she can find more monsters so she can level up. Daniel advises Salvos not to fight any monster she cannot beat as he sees that she is looking for monsters to kill, and she decides to go down the cave and investigate the cave on her own, seeing that they were asleep. Salvos then leaves, and she sees that she has seen a group of bats, and she decides to take them out on their own, and she sees that she has leveled up. She then begins to wonder if Daniel and Edith are awake, and she begins to find her way back, and she eventually sees Daniel and Edith. Salvos then tells Daniel that she will need to rest, and she tells him that most places in the cave lead to dead ends, and there is nothing for them. Daniel then tells her that they will discuss it with Edith when she wakes up, and Salvos tells him that she needs to rest. Salvos sees that they have been idle, and she goes to disturb Daniel, and Daniel asks how if she is aware of his age, seeing that she behaves like a child, and she tells him that there is no way to keep track of time in the netherworld, and they continue to share personal experiences about one another, and Daniel tells her that he wants to go back to bed, and Salvos thanks him for helping her, and she tells him that she is 2 years old, and he becomes surprised. Edith begins to explain to Salvos the difference between a nest and a lair, and Salvos sees that it is dangerous according to Edith, and she sees that she has to kill everything in it. Daniel sees that she is not as predictable as he thought, and he tells her that they need to continue exploring the caves, and they begin to move. Edith then sees some azure bats and Salvos tries to attack it, and Edith warns her to slow down as it might be dangerous. But she sees that it is too late, and Salvos has moved to attack the monster. Daniel calls her and tells her to stop, but she tells him that she has killed the boss, but Daniel tells her that there are still a lot of them left. Daniel begins to talk about a shade swarmer, and they see a bag of loot, and Edith brings out a hammer and Salvos tells her that it is hers, and she converts it into a flaming hammer to use for her battle. Edith begins to warn Daniel about how dangerous Salvos is, and Daniel tells her that they have a common enemy, which is Lucrena, and she begins to wonder why she is after him. Salvos then tells her that she needs him so that she can return back to the netherworld, and Salvos asks her why she is getting worked up about it. She tells her that she lost all her friends to Lucrena, and she doesn't deserve to live, and that is her reason for acting strange to her, and Salvos sees that humans are weird and interesting. If you made it this far, let's confuse the fake fans amongst us and comment "Rip Salvos." Kindly subscribe and blow this video up with your likes. Until next time, do take care and stay safe.